Hi, and welcome to the Hidden Gifts of Loss podcast. I'm your host, Julie Trainer. And on this show, we talk about how we found hidden gifts in loss that we didn't expect and most often couldn't see at the time, and how those things have transformed us and we've transformed ourselves, and what that looks like for us now. I am so honored today to have Julie Cluff on the show. She suffered a devastating loss 17 years ago and just don't know how she recovered from that, but we're going to find out. She now, however, is a grief and angel coach, the founder of Build a Life After Loss, and she trains others to be grief coaches with her hope model of healing, which I'm very interested in how that works, and her 5 foundations of growth. So, Julie, thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. I love doing these interviews and talking to people and sharing experiences with each other. And it's one of my favorite things, connecting with people.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I saw you on Facebook and I read your story and I just thought, I've got to reach out to her. And I'm so happy that you said yes. So, wonderful. So you have built this amazing legacy of hope and healing and what a gift that came out of loss. And
Yeah.
my gosh, tell us how that happened. What you went through is every parent's worst nightmare. I just can't
Yeah,
even. Oh,
for sure. It is a challenging story to hear. I was traveling across the country with my three youngest children, um, and we were in a rollover car accident. Unfortunately, I fell asleep at the wheel. It was so shocking in every way. But one of the things that was just really difficult for me to wrap my head around is I had never felt tired that day. I felt energetic. We were laughing in the car and having a good trip, which is not always easy with three kids. My son James was 12 and he was in the front seat with me. And my daughter Carrie was 10 and my son David was 8 at the time. And Carrie and David were in the back seat. But I have no memory of ever feeling tired that day because I was super cautious about that. I was used to taking long trips and then to find myself wake up in the median, bouncing along the median. When I tried to bring the my SUV back up on the highway, we just started rolling and we rolled across 2 lanes of highway and really you were talking about the things that I've done, the legacy that I've built from this experience, but really it's not just me. It's not me. My kids who have passed away, my kids who are here, because I am a mother of 6 children and I have currently have 11 grandchildren. But my children who passed away, my angels, and including my brother who died by suicide 15 years before this happened, they are truly involved in this mission and this purpose and this bringing light to the world, bringing hope back to the world. The thing that's so fascinating to me, I'm such a student of life and people and experiences. And the thing that's super fascinating to me is to look back on when this happened and to think about what was I told when my kids died compared to what people are told now. And it is so different because this was in 2007. This happened in 2007. And I think the next year in 2008, I started my Facebook account. And there wasn't really, social media wasn't a thing. And now social media is so much a part of our life. And when people they go looking for help, they naturally turn to social media. That wasn't an option for me.
no, not at
No,
all.
that wasn't a way of connecting and finding answers. And unfortunately, the answers that are found a lot of times through social media are just devastatingly hopeless. And I had gone through a lot of loss and grief before my kids died. I'd lost my brother, like I mentioned. And then a couple of years after that, my first marriage ended in divorce. And I remarried. And I had these three beautiful children that I was traveling with my second husband. We just built this one big family. There was no like steps and half siblings, just everybody. We were just one big Brady Bunch family,
Yeah,
truly.
exactly.
And we just built this beautiful life. But I had gone through such grief after my brother died, after my divorce, after my parents' divorce, and that happened when I was an adult.
Mm.
And it was incredibly painful and watching what was happening to their lives and other things that have happened. And so I wasn't a stranger to loss and grief. And I had all these experiences. And I remember distinctly about it was 2 or 3 weeks after, because I was home by now. We spent the first week in the hospital. My son James needed surgery, but there were so many miracles. I just don't even know which direction to go with what I'm sharing with you. But I have a distinct memory of sitting in my backyard, sitting in a chair in the backyard and thinking, how will I recover from this? How will I move on? How can I possibly, because I'd had all these other experiences and they were devastating and they were hard. And yet life had moved on and I had been able to move forward and I had been able to enjoy my life even after these other devastating things had happened. And there was just this kernel of hope that just lived in the core of me. And I don't think that's any accident. And I feel certain that my children, my brother, my angels, my guides, heaven was around me.
Mm.
Heaven was there, even though I couldn't feel it because I
Yeah.
was so devastated.
Yeah.
But there were so many things that happened even during the hour, like even in the middle of the accident. In the middle of the accident, as the car is rolling, I heard a voice in my head that said, bring your arm in.
Oh my God.
And I brought my arm in. About 3 months later, and I don't even have any idea how I even paid attention to that.
Yeah.
But it was very distinct. It was not a panicked voice. It was a very serene voice that said, bring your arm in.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, my uncle called and he said, I just saw this woman on TV and she lost her arm in a rollover accident you were in. And 3 years later, I met a woman who had lost her arm in a rollover accident. And I just felt we all have these challenges that we face. We just can't live life without challenges.
No.
It's built in. It's built in. We don't go looking for them. There's things that we can do to make our life less challenging. And that certainly is a big part of my message today is like, how do we live a life that's joyful and purposeful and go through the bumps and challenges of life and move forward and still have joy and still have purpose. Not that happens right away. I just always want to be clear
No,
that
it
I'm
does
not
not.
saying wake up the next day and everything's okay. That's not the
No.
way it works. But it's these challenges happen. And to me, it was like heaven saying to me, my angels telling me from the beginning, this was a part of your plan. Losing your arm wasn't.
Yeah.
And so because in my mind, I thought, I received a message to save my arm. Why didn't that same voice, why didn't that same guide, that same spirit guide, that same angel wake me up
Yeah.
before this horrific accident? And so the questions are what we get to grapple with. I had a client that said to me one day, and I was like, what a beautiful statement. She said, in essence, nothing good has come from the loss of my daughter. but so much good has come from the way that I've responded to it.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
mhm,
brilliant wisdom.
mhm,
But those first 3 years were just utter hell, but there were so many things that happened that were just that there were these touch points. And I think this is where we get to look at what we're experiencing and go, okay, because it's so easy to go when you're in that much pain to say everything is horrible.
mhm.
It's just so easy to just say life is horrible, everything is horrible, my life stinks, my life is just awful. And certainly there are hours and days that we do that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But there were these touch points. It was like these little light switch moments where I was given glimpses of better days to come
Mhm.
and so much hope and so much feeling of being guided. Even I look back now and it's so clear to me, but in the middle of the path, in the middle of the dark cave, those little glimpses of light just were not enough.
Not enough. No.
Not
No.
enough, not
Ugh.
enough. But it was, there were just so many wonderful, miraculous things. I remember one of my best friends calling me at the hospital because this accident happened. We were living in Houston at the time, and the accident happened at the border of Mississippi and Alabama. And one of my good friends called me. I want to say it was the next day. And of course, sharing her sorrow because she loved my kids too. It's just devastating. It's not just everybody around us was devastated.
Yeah. Ugh.
Everybody. It was devastating for everyone. And she called and we were talking. And I remember saying to her, the kids are okay. They're okay. And I know they're okay. And somehow I've got to figure out how to be okay eventually.
Yeah. Oh, a tiny little bit of peace that you
Mm-hmm.
had just in that one moment. And you felt and you knew.
Yeah.
Mom knows you knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're like angel children now,
Yeah.
right? They
They just graduated a lot earlier than we expected them to. They took the fast course, which we had no idea. Interestingly, 5 years before, David was 3 and Carrie was 5, they fell out our second story window in this freak accident. We had just moved into this house that we worked for, that it was brand new to us. Wasn't new, but it was brand new to us. And it was springtime and we had the window, they opened the window upstairs and they were leaning on the screen, both of them together on the window screen, talking to the dog in the backyard. And the screen came out and they both fell and they
like,
were okay.
oh wow.
Miraculously okay. Carrie had minor fractures to both her wrists actually, and wore casts for a month, 2 casts, which was really interesting and challenging. But
I bet a
um,
3-year-old in 2 casts. Yeah.
yeah, she was 5 and then David was 3. Oh, we had so many friends coming over to the house and showering them with love. And I remember Carrie one day said, she is so sweet, but she said one day, do you think somebody could bring me a Barbie? Kids are so funny.
Priorities, right? Oh my God.
Exactly. They were just beautiful children. David was extremely active. His mind was just always working. He was like the mad scientist. I kept waiting for him to grow out of the getting into everything stage, and he never did. Curious to the nth degree, and just such a happy, sweet boy. And Carrie was, she was just so loving. She made friends like no one I've seen. I still hear from her friends who are now 27 years old.
Oh,
they'll reach out and they'll say, Carrie, I got a picture maybe 3 months ago from one of her friends from when she was growing up. Said, oh, I found this picture of Carrie, and they had been playing, painting each other's faces, and they snapped this picture, and it couldn't have been too long before she passed away. It was just before that. But she just had this knack for loving people that was like no other.
Mm.
And one of the things I remember some of these girls sharing with me over the years is that she had this way of including everybody, which was far beyond her years. She was a
Mhm.
very, just a sweet, innocent girl, but she just took in everybody. She wasn't concerned about who was popular, who wasn't. She just had this way of connecting with everybody. It was really remarkable, to the point I remember one of my friends saying something about her being a brown noser. And I'm like, no, that's just the way she is. She's just wants everybody to feel loved and included. And I believe that is still who she is, to that and magnified.
Yeah.
So there's just these beautiful moments along the journey of grief that even during the challenging times. And then I had this at the 3-year mark, I had this miraculous experience where the grief lifted like
Mm.
overnight. I was in such a bad place by that time. In the first year or two, I had a lot of patience for my grief because I was familiar with it. And I had a tremendous amount of patience for my grief. I was just
Mm.
like, this is terrible. And you know what? Of course it's terrible. But I was having what now I realize I was having a lot of panic attacks. I did suffer from PTSD from the car accident, but I was having what now I look back on and that wasn't just normal grief, that was panic attacks that I was experiencing. But yeah, but then after a couple of years, like I should be doing better. And
Mhm.
as soon as I put that I was brutal to myself.
Yeah, I think our
And
culture expects that's one of the bad pieces of advice, right? You should get over it. You should move on. That's not how grief works.
no, and it's amazing to me. I cannot, sometimes when people tell me what somebody has said to them, I'm like, is that what really was said, or did they hear it wrong? Because I'll be talking to a client that'll say they lost their wife three months before, and somebody said, "You're still not over that?" And I like my jaw drops to the ground. And so when we're in the middle of that pain and somebody says something like that, then we start going, should I be over? Because we don't know.
Yeah, it's not
We don't
familiar.
know.
We're not taught
Yeah.
this stuff in our culture. We don't even talk about
Mm-mm.
it. I like that
Yeah.
you said patience with your grief.
Lots and lots and lots of patience. So necessary.
Mm.
But it also takes effort, because I think that's another side of the coin, right? Is this idea that time heals all wounds. So that's part of that. Oh, you're not over it yet, right? Oh, didn't time just heal you?
No.
and and it's that desire and putting in the effort to seek, not from a place of I've got to get over this, but from a place of there's things that I need to understand
Mhm.
to move forward. There's pieces that I don't understand yet.
Yeah.
And as I gather those pieces, I'll gain greater understanding.
Mhm.
And over time, I can start to integrate
Yeah,
my
exactly, because you're not the
experience.
same person. The person you were is shattered, and you have to put her back together. And you had
100%.
4 other children. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. My two girls were off at college, and then two boys.
Mhm.
So that were still at home in high school. And gosh, what can you imagine a worse time to have a mother who's completely
Yeah.
checked out,
Oh,
PTSD, panic attacks, completely incapable of. It wasn't that I just completely ignored them, but I didn't have a lot of capacity.
No.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Just waking up in the morning, I would imagine it probably hits you all over again. You wake up and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
on
I
me.
had an
Yeah.
experience 4 months after the kids died. I walked into a little corner drugstore and they had put some Halloween costumes out. And this accident happened on Mother's Day, by the way. So it was May of 2007 on Mother's Day.
Oh.
And it was also my birthday weekend. So it was just like, this had the capacity to really take the knees out of my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And there were
Mm-hmm.
so many things that happened that I could look at and go, oh my word, look at this event that happened that reshaped my thinking around things that allowed me to keep moving forward from
Yes.
this little light of hope to another little light of hope to another little light of hope. But 4 months after the accident, I walked into the drugstore and I saw these costumes. My first thought was Carrie would love that witch costume that was hanging there. It was black, flowy, the big hat. Oh, she would have just had so much fun with that. But of course, in less than a second, I'm hit with the reality that she's not there because my brain still had not integrated, like I was
No.
saying, the fact that they were gone and they were gone. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't going to be back in this physical
Mm.
life
Yeah.
with me anymore. But when that happened, and I had that thought, and here I am just in this drugstore, and I had this thought that she would love this costume, and oh my gosh, she's gone. And here I am standing in the middle of the drugstore, devastated. And in my mind, I was like, why did this happen?
Yeah.
Why did this have to happen? And again, a voice came to me, not outside of me, inside, but talking to me was not my voice. It was an inner voice, a higher voice that said, they're right where they're supposed to be. Now, as a mom, if anybody had said that to me, I probably would have wanted to punch them out.
Yeah.
So I don't advise saying that, to
Right.
somebody who's lost somebody that they're devastated about losing. But there was just so much love and gentleness in this response. And then my inner self said, but why did it have to happen like this?
Mm.
Because it was so painful to have been the cause of my children's death.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But when that question came, how would you have liked it to happen? When we get a question, we automatically start searching. And I
Mm-hmm.
automatically started searching. And I realized there was no good answer. It's this whole understanding that they're where they're supposed to be, and there had to been an exit plan.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was part of that exit plan.
Uh,
And that is hard to wrap your head around.
oh, yeah.
I'm having these experiences while I'm just in heavy grief. I just was, but like I said, at the 3 year mark, I had a remarkable healing experience. Are you familiar with Byron Katie?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Making
For
peace
those,
with the way that it is.
yeah. So what's interesting for those that aren't familiar with Byron Katie, she had clinical depression and was hospitalized multiple times. I don't know her story that well, but I do know that she was hospitalized multiple times for her depression. And I think she was 40, something like that. And she was in a hospital. And one day she just woke up and she just saw everything differently.
Yeah.
There was just like this turning point where she's like, just all of a sudden saw everything differently.
Hmm. Yeah. She had a huge impact on me.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Me
Huge.
too. And I didn't discover her work until after all this had happened
Mhm.
with the kids. But I love her story. And I love because I could relate to it so much because it was what happened with me. I had this experience and this spiritual experience where There was prayer involved. But it's like the lights came on. One day I was in so much darkness. It was physical. Like I could just feel physical darkness.
Yeah.
And then the next day it was gone.
Oh, that's amazing.
And my life turned around in a miraculous way. And that was in 2010. So 3 years after the accident. In 2012, I met this couple. My mom introduced me to them. She had been working with them, and she said, "Oh, you've got to go to lunch with us." And so I went to lunch with them, met them for the first time. And this man that we were having dinner or lunch with was sharing his story of his trials that he'd gone through and the way he had turned his life around. At any rate, my mom says, "Tell your story." And I was at that point where I wasn't used to telling my story. I was doing great, but I wasn't used to telling my story. So I felt really uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
But I told my story, and that was just before our lunch ended. As we were walking out of the restaurant, he put his hand on my arm and he said, "You're supposed to do something with this."
Oh, I have chills.
Exactly what happened to me.
Ah,
And when he said that, I felt like lightning had just struck. It was as if God stood in front of me and said, "You're supposed to do something with this." And so then I spent the next few years trying to figure out what in the world is it that I'm supposed to do with this?
right.
I don't know what to do with this. Because I don't know what you're supposed to do with it, but you're supposed to do something with this. And that's what brings us here today. I felt that deeply, and I kept my eyes and ears open. I tried some different things. I actually enrolled to go back to school
Mhm.
to become a therapist. How old was I at the time? I don't know. I was 45 when the kids died. We can do the math.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was, almost 10 years later, probably 9 years later, that I enrolled to go back to school to become a therapist. And the first week of being in those classes, and I just looked around and I went, this is not where I'm supposed to be. I just felt it. I just
Yeah,
knew it. But college and learning and all that was like, had high value for
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, God had a
Mhm.
different plan.
I can imagine. Yeah, yeah. My first semester of graduate school to become a therapist, I had this overwhelming feeling that is not what I was supposed to be doing.
Oh,
And so
well,
I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. And the same after my parents died. I knew I wasn't the same. And it's not the same as losing your children. Your parents, they're older than you. That's the order of things. But I was not the same person and I didn't know who I was supposed to be. And I felt like I'm supposed to do something with this, but I don't know what it is. And I had this idea, start a podcast or become an end of life doula or become a grief coach. And then the podcast thing just landed and it's ended up just being amazing, something that I
that's
didn't
beautiful.
think I would do. And here we are.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
how did you come about from being in school, realizing that wasn't where you should be to what you're doing now?
I don't remember exactly, except I do know that I think it was my daughter had introduced me to a podcast with a life coach. I was listening to a lot of podcasts because I was doing a lot of driving back and forth to work. Uh, and, and my daughter's, "Oh, you've got to listen to this podcast." Anyway, so I started listening to life coaching podcasts. And I was so enthralled by the process of examining our thoughts and being able to choose different thoughts. And it was so eye opening to me. And what's interesting is a lot of the people that come through the grief coach training have been, because I was a podcaster too, so I always have a lot to say. So, Julie, you're just going to say, be quiet. But
No, please just keep talking. I'm enthralled.
but coaching, I came to recognize that there's three levels of coaching, and that first level is just the traditional coaching that's ask questions, help people identify what they want, and support them in moving forward in their goals. And the second level is mindset coaching, which is that process where we're examining our thoughts. The Byron Katie model where we're examining those thoughts and we're looking at them and we're going, is that really what I want to think? And is that really how I want to feel? And so forth. And then there's a third level of coaching, which I call intuitive coaching. And that's where, as an experienced coach, we pay attention to those messages that we receive. One of the things that was fascinating for me as I started coaching people, and I wasn't telling them at the time, but there were so many people that I coached, and I would feel their daughter, their son, their wife, their father, their mother. I would feel them in the room with us.
Mm-hmm.
I would just feel them there. And it was like they were leading our discussion. They were sharing with me what their father, mother, daughter, husband, wife needed to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And it just blew me away. And then I've had these experiences where I still very much feel connected to my daughter and my son and my brother, and I still communicate with them. And I have other people on the other side, but those are the three that stay
Yeah.
around pretty close. And then it just developed into this where I started to receive messages because I was receiving messages from angels. I started to recognize angels in my life. I learned later that it was my daughter, Carrie, that was sending me 12s. This was a few years ago. I was seeing 12s everywhere, and my birthday is on the 12th. And so it stood out to me. I'm like, this is not normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why am I seeing 12s everywhere? This was a few years ago. I'm like, this is not. So then I started asking people that I knew were into spiritual things, and I would say, you have any idea what 12 means? I had no idea. But it was that introduction to these messages that were coming through. And after in 2010, I started doing a lot of journaling, and I was doing a lot of intuitive journaling where I would ask questions. Some people call it automatic writing, some people call it intuitive journaling. Um, but I would ask questions and I would just listen for the answers and write them down.
Mm-hmm.
And that developed into just pages and pages and pages of really beautiful, inspired messages. But then I started getting messages for other people.
Mm-hmm.
I was in 2020, I had a friend whose son passed away, unfortunately, because of COVID. He was a young man, and it had been a couple of weeks since his passing, and I was getting in the car in the parking lot. I was out running errands, and I was just getting back in my car, and I all of a sudden was like, felt him in the car with me, which surprised me. And I know it really surprised me because I wasn't that close to him. I didn't know him that well. I knew him because he was my son's age. I knew him because I was his mom's friend, but I didn't really know him that well.
Yeah.
And I just felt him in the car. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I just pulled out my phone and just started writing down what I was sensing that he was trying to communicate. And then I waited for an opportunity to share that with his mom. But that happened a few times where I would feel somebody and I would just feel that they had a message and I would write it down. I had a client that I hadn't even worked with for a while, and I received a message from her dad. And when the message came through, there was part of the message that I was like, I can't say that. And it was so insistent. Yes, you've got to share this. And so I did. Because part of the message was about how he would be there when she got married and when she had kids. And I thought, last I knew her, she wasn't dating anybody. I didn't even know if she was interested in getting married. It just felt weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It felt funny. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the impression was so powerful. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to trust this. So I hadn't talked to her, like I said, in over a year, and I messaged her and I said, this might seem a little weird. Are you okay if I share a message that I received from your dad? And she said, yeah. And I sent it to her, and she was so appreciative. And it was such a beautiful experience. It was just before Christmas too, actually, when this happened. 3 months later, a family member of hers who I did know and saw fairly regularly posted a picture of her wedding. I had no idea that she was even dating anyone, much less engaged to anyone. Uh, and here I was going, I can't say that.
Right?
Who am I to say what should be
Oh,
said and what shouldn't be said, right?
wow.
So that just developed into the where I'm more open about sharing those experiences with people, sharing my own connection with my kids. I'm teaching webinars about connecting with our angels, noticing their messages, connecting with them through experiences that we have and writing and different things. And that's today is just my greatest joy is to help people to really connect with the eternal aspect of our existence and the eternal aspect of our relationships and our ability to communicate and just what that looks like. So often I hear people say, I wish so and so could be here to see this person graduate, to see this person get married, to see this baby being born. And every time I hear that, I think they're here. They are seeing it.
Yeah.
Chances are they were part of making it happen. Like, not only are they seeing it, but let's give them some credit because they're over on the
Right.
other side helping us. If they cared about us when we were here, they care about us when they're on the other side. And that's another piece that I really want to share is this idea that we get loss and grief and love all meshed together. And there's this message out there that's so prevalent now that we grieve because we love, which is true. Somebody can die on the other side of the country, and I don't know that person. So obviously, I'm not going to grieve that loss. I'm going to grieve someone I feel close to. But there's this aspect of feeling like we have to hold on to the pain to prove our love. But that was never an aspect of our life with that person in life.
Yeah.
We never had to experience pain to experience love with them here. So there's this point at which we can let go of the pain and we can hold on to the love. And it actually opens that portal, that flow of love to a greater degree when we're able to move through that tunnel of pain and eventually let go of the pain. We've got to experience it. There's no getting around it. Grief is part of the process, but holding on to the pain as a price to experience love is not necessary. And I know people think that it's really odd that I say, in fact, I used to be embarrassed to say this to people because I would think, do they think I didn't love my kids? Do they think but I don't experience grief anymore. I just do not experience grief anymore from losing my children. I am so at peace that they are where they are supposed to be, and I am where I am supposed to be. And that was part of my growth process, was just this realization there's a reason I'm still here. I could have just as easily died in that accident as they did.
Yeah.
There's a reason I'm still here. And I get to continue to live my life and create hopefully some good and some good experiences and enjoy my family that's still here. I don't have to disconnect because of my pain. I don't have to disconnect from the living and stay connected to those who have deceased with the pain. I can move through the pain, let go of the pain, and enjoy love on all planes.
Ah, yes. That's such a message of hope for someone who's in that dark place right now, because it doesn't feel like it's going to end. And I get that. I don't experience grief anymore. either. I experience it's as if I didn't lose them. It's like I found them, my
Oh,
parents, and I
yeah.
feel them around me, and we have a different relationship now. And it's like from where they are, they're able to do more because they're not stuck in their earth stuff that was weighing
Yeah.
them down. And it's like without going through that, almost like a birth or a rite of passage, you would never know. It's not a club we want to join. It teaches us things that there's no other way to learn that in Earth School. It's like you said, why did it have to happen this way? But apparently that was part of their mission. They apparently came in already very evolved, your children, and they had this huge lesson to teach so many of us. And then through you, what you were sharing and how many people you're helping, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I look at the workbook that I developed for clients. I look at the work that I've done. I'm like, I didn't do that. I mean, it's
Mhm.
like, how in the world did all that come to be? It's interesting when you said no one signs up for that club. And I've never thought of it this way until you said that. Yeah, we did. We all signed up for this club of humanity. We didn't know what we were signing up for. We didn't have total understanding. And I don't know if you experience this, but I experience with them, for me, when I connect with my kids, they died when they were still children,
Mhm.
but they are very mature. They are fully mature spirits on the other
Yeah.
side. Now, there's been times when I have connected people with their children on the other side, and they'll come through in that childlike manner because they're trying to show that it's them.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
there's this wisdom that is just gained from being from that other's perspective.
Mhm.
And we're each in these different, I don't know, I could, yeah, we're here, we're experiencing this. We're here because we're supposed to be experiencing this right here, right now. And the people on the other side are on the other side because that's where they're, and I'm usually opposed to the idea of supposed to be. We can just look at it and go, this is the order of life. This is the order of existence. We live, we pass on to the other side, and that's just the order of life. We
It's
see
like,
it in the seasons, we see it in night and day. It's the order of life.
yeah, it's you said they had an exit plan.
Yeah,
You know? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, we
But I
all,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't know how, do you notice that too? That when you connect to those, like your parents on the other side, that you just feel that deep wisdom. Like there's
Mm,
just this
yeah,
divine wisdom.
there is. And peace, just this peace. Just, yeah. Uh-huh. We can't see them, but that doesn't mean they're not here. That's
Right.
hard for us because we're used to those senses, sight and smell and touch. But, just because we can't see the spirit world, it doesn't mean it's not here. And I feel that so, like, I know that on such a much more visceral level than I did
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, and I really think that's one of the reasons that life is set up the way it is. It's not like we all show up at the same time
Mm,
and we live for 50, 70, 100 years and then we all leave at the same time. No, we come and we go and we come and we go, and
mhm.
it connects us to that spiritual realm.
Yeah.
When we experience a major loss, it asks us, it requires of us to look deeper at life, to look at life deeper.
Mhm.
And like you were mentioning earlier, we're not the same people. 100% we're not the same people. But a lot of times people hear we're not the same people and they think, no, we're not. We're broken.
Mm, mm,
And
mhm.
that's a lot of times the way that's presented. But we're not the same people, but we can be inspired and uplifted, and just our minds can be just opened up in ways that sometimes without these experiences just can't be opened
No,
in the same way.
no. It's like you said, those little miracles, those little touch points along the way get you,
Hmm.
got you through, and you wouldn't have had those experiences that brought you here. Mm.
'Cause sometimes I think it's hard, and I'm sure you can appreciate this. Sometimes it's hard to go, oh my gosh, there's so much good has come out of this, what we would call a tragic
Mhm.
circumstance. So much good has come from it. And that's hard sometimes to wrap your head around because you're just like, how can I say that? How can I say
Mhm.
that? And there's still people in my life that are still grappling with what happened 17 years ago. And so I want to be really very respectful of that. It's okay if we don't think that right now. I actually remember where I was because I remember hearing people say things like, there'll come a time when you'll be grateful for, and I had had this experience with healing, and I was in a good place and I was moving forward. And even after that initial healing, 3 years after, there were more things that happened that like just brought me to greater healing. And that's really the way we want to live our life, is just this continuous growth and expansion, and what they're now calling post-traumatic growth.
I
um,
heard that the other day,
yeah,
and that's such a
but it's
way of reframing it.
I know, but at the same time, they use it as if it's a accident. I'm still looking at the literature on this, and there's not a ton. In fact, a therapist was interviewing me a few years ago, and we were talking about grief, and there's not a ton of literature on grief. There's not a ton of literature on post-traumatic growth either, but it's
It's
a newer term.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, we're learning and growing, and we're just moving through, and we're trying to figure it out. And we have new experiences. I still experience loss and grief today,
Mhm.
not to the magnitude that I was experiencing it then, but and I hope there's a part of me that hopes that it will never be to that depth again.
Mhm.
But I look at it and I go, wow, just some beautiful experiences that have come out of that.
Yeah.
There was something I started to say that I didn't finish. I know I didn't. And it was this idea of one day we'd be grateful for our challenges. And like I said, I'm trying to remember because we were in the middle of a move. So what year would it have been? 2013. 2013. So 6 years later, I remember where I was, and I was reading something, and all of a sudden, I just was filled with so much gratitude for my loss,
Wow.
for that humongous challenge that opened my eyes to life in a way that is, you can't put that genie back in the bottle.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Transformation.
I was just like, oh my goodness, I really could say that today. I really could say that I am grateful. And I didn't know that would ever happen.
I'm sure. No, not when you were going through it. Wow.
Mm.
What do the 12s mean?
I'm still unpacking that. I still see 12s a lot. But I think the interesting thing was you can Google and say, what does angel number 12 mean? Or what does angel 222? I've been seeing a lot of repetitive numbers lately.
Mhm.
111, 222, 333. We can, even while we were doing this interview, I looked down and and I just happened to look down as the clock turned two. So we see that quite a bit. I see it a lot. An avid The interesting thing with the number 12, with a lot of other numbers, consistency in the message of what it means. But with the number 12, everywhere I read it was a different meaning. But I think that it was just put in front of me because it would be meaningful to me.
Mhm.
Not that the number itself had meaning specifically. I'm sure it does. I'm always learning new things, but I don't know that it was the message of the number as much as it was pay attention.
Yeah,
Pay attention.
yeah.
Like like I was sitting on my back deck. This is a couple months ago, and this huge bee just flew up in front of my face and hovered a foot in front of my face. Just hovered there,
God.
just looking at me. And then it flew away. And I thought, that is unusual. So when things like that happen, then I go, okay, what does a bee mean?
Mhm.
What is the
Mhm.
meaning of that? And I keep notes in my phone of those experiences and write them down and look at the meanings. And I still to this day, in fact, I've had to go to my computer because I can't write fast enough anymore, but I still do my intuitive journaling, my automatic writing,
Yeah.
where I ask questions and get answers. And now I do that for clients. They ask questions and then I verbally give the answers that angels are communicating. Their angels, their loved ones.
I was going to say too that I see numbers all the time like that too. Like I'll see 304 and that was my parents' address. I'll see that a lot. And I just always feel like it's them saying hi.
Exactly.
And then, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have a deep meaning. It's just, oh, hi, mom. Nice to see you. So,
Yeah, it
wow.
has meaning for you.
It has meaning for me, right? And then it's just like you gave that message to the woman you didn't even know was going to get married. And that sounded so weird, but it had meaning for her. And that's it's just so cool that you have that ability too. You didn't have that before either. Now that you get these messages for people,
No,
that's what a
no.
gift. Just so many gifts that have come out of this.
Yeah, sometimes I say I feel like I had a near-death experience. And in fact, there's some missing time in the middle of that accident that I'm still exploring as what happened during that time. Because when the car stopped rolling, I had I couldn't see anything. It was like I had blacked out, but I don't remember blacking out or waking up. I just know everything was dark.
Yeah.
And then my eyesight started coming back. But then as it's just been in the recent few months and I've been like, there's missing time in there where like this and this couldn't have happened. There's had to have been space between that and that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really fascinating. I just I feel like we're being invited. That it's a time in the history of the world where we're being invited. And I think we're always being invited to this, but I do feel like there's some things happening in the world right now that are giving us more and more access to the other side and giving us more ability to connect. And we can take advantage of that. We can take advantage of that and invite that in. And sometimes I get a little thirsty for more, a little hungry. I want to understand more, and I have to relax and just, we're right where we're supposed to be. Everything's
Like
okay.
that. Yeah, that's comforting. That brings a lot of peace when you feel like frazzled. It's wait a minute, no, we're right where we're supposed to be. This has been so good. I appreciate you so much spending this time with me today.
It's
And
been a
people
joy.
can find you on, oh, thank you. People can find you on Facebook at Build a Life After Loss with Julie Cluff. And where else can people find you?
So on Instagram, I'm Julie Cluff Coaching.
Okay.
So I do have a website. You can get to the website, buildalifeafterloss.com, or just my name, juliecluff.com.
Okay.
Will take
Great.
you to the
All
website.
right. Wonderful. Thank you. I just can't thank you enough. This has been amazing. So,
Thank you. So fun
right.
to
I
connect
could
with
talk to
you.
you
I'm
all
so
day.
glad you reached out.
Oh, thank you. All right. Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
That sounds great. Thanks,
All right.
Julie.
Yeah, thank you.